You're 2015 grad. Okay, 2015 graduate. Okay. I'm sorry, correction,
It's
2015 grad.
okay.
Okay. Didn't do my math right. Okay. All right. First of all, why did your family start homeschool?
So according to my mom, when other people asked her, she said it was because she worked in the New York school district with special education, which was not so much like what we would call special education now. It was more so the kids that were just really bad. um, and she worked there, I think, a year or so, and then she got pregnant with my brother, and she just had some bad experiences, and she decided she didn't want us to be involved in that. So that's from what I heard, why
Yeah.
she started homeschooling. She also met a lot of homeschool families when they were traveling at one point, when they got a lot more information. When my dad had been stationed in Virginia um,
Okay.
in 1990 something for some time. And I think that also encouraged her to look more into it and then decide to do it. But it was before we were school age.
Okay, so you were homeschooled at what age and what grades?
I've been homeschooled through every single age and
Okay.
grade. So pre-K up.
Pre-K up. Okay. Did you enjoy being homeschooled or was it challenging? And, just explain, even if it was a little of both.
I did enjoy it, but honestly, I don't know if it's only because I never had any other thing to compare it to. Um, but I also know, especially when we were younger and those ages where you get really bored, my mom always did a lot of really fun stuff and activities that we would do during the school year. So it kept it very interesting. Um, I never felt like I was left out or in any way missing out on anything. So from my experience, I did enjoy it. If we could redo it, I wouldn't probably want to go to public school or private, especially after talking to people that I know who've gone there. So I think
Right.
homeschooling was always just for me personally.
Okay, so that leads us right into really the next question, because how were you socialized? You know, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, a lot of activities you said.
Yeah, so I think the main thing was definitely church. We were in church every time the doors were open, and so we were always talking to people. There was always people coming to our house. My parents did a lot of hosting and gatherings and get-togethers and game nights. So there was always folks coming to our houses. We did homeschool co-op in New York and in Virginia, where I graduated is in Virginia. We did a lot of homeschool co-ops. The co-ops were a lot different in New York. They were a lot more social. It was a huge community, as Virginia was a little bit different, but we still were in it a little bit. And then we were old enough from middle school on. We did sports. No, in New York we did sports too. We did track and field. And my brother did basketball, but then me and my sister did basketball in middle school and up in Virginia. And we did a lot of traveling. We went to a lot of different church events and homeschool events throughout the year as well.
Right. And not just in Virginia, but all around.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be able to remember the ones in New York because I was a little bit too like we moved when I was 10, so I don't remember a lot before. But when we were in Virginia, there were a few conventions we went to in a couple different states, and then there was one we always went to. It started in Georgia called Roundhouse, and now or Alabama, and now it's in North Carolina.
Right. Okay. And so you were socialized with all ages and all different kinds of groups, especially since you saying you traveled and you were different places.
Yeah, so growing up, most of my friends or most of the people I met were probably not my own age. I did have friends my own age, and I was really close with my siblings and um, your kids and some other people in New
Yes.
York. And then when we moved to Virginia, it was mostly my basketball team. But most of the socializing we did, I would say, was with all ages. So like I was around a lot of like my grandfather's senior citizen group. we were around them a lot. A lot of the women's groups at church were like some of the older women and married. And then also when we did knitting and stuff like that, a lot of times they were older too. So we did actually have a lot of socializing with older folks, which I really appreciate now. I didn't mind it then. They were always really nice. It was like having a bunch of grandmothers. Um,
Oh,
so it was really great. But yeah, we did a lot of socializing with a lot of different groups. It wasn't always just kids my age.
right. And do you think you missed out on anything because you were homeschooled, either with specific groups or with anything? And you said you did sports, but anything you feel like, oh, just in looking back now, like, oh, I wish I had.
Not really, only because I know if there was anything that I wanted to do, there's a way to do it. So like if I wanted to take cooking classes or a certain class, a lot of the co-ops offer that, or there's places you can go. If you wanted to learn instruments, there's people who could teach you that.
Right.
If you wanted to go to prom, which I didn't ever want to, we never did that, but they had like different type of things like that with our co-op. So there's a lot of stuff that kids who are in schools get that we still got to, like even with the sports, it wasn't like we just played a bunch against ourselves. We played against private and Christian schools. So we also were playing against other schools and traveling. We did a lot of traveling with the sports teams as well and tournaments and stuff like that. So there was nothing that we did that I could think of, even now, that I think would have made me have the fear of missing out or anything like that.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And we did a lot of camps in the summer as well. I
Okay.
forgot about that. So we did a lot of camps from the age of 12 up. Every summer we did at least 3 to 4 camps with
Right. And
kids, with teens and stuff like that.
and I have to say, only because I know this, all over the country, not in Virginia.
Yeah, there's nothing really in Virginia when it comes to that kind of stuff. A lot of it is out of state. Yeah.
So you went to Tennessee. I know your brother went to Colorado.
Most of ours was in Tennessee, and I did a couple. We did, there was one in New York, and then we did a couple in Georgia and Alabama. So it was mostly the South.
Right. Okay.
There we
And
knew of others, but just because with three of us, the easiest places were places that we could drive to. But sometimes we drove, 14, 15 hours, like stuff like that. Because when it came to traveling, we didn't have to wait till we were out of school or wait till, I don't know, we got a break. We could go wherever we wanted,
right.
whenever we wanted. So that was
And again, only because I kind of know a little bit of this, just speak on the relationships you built over that time of going to those different camps and going to those different homeschool events in different states. Speak to the relationships that maybe you still have now.
Oh, almost anywhere I go, and this is almost all the way. Like I went to Oklahoma last year. Um, I even went overseas a couple times, like to Canada, and then we went to Israel. I've known someone that I met somewhere along the way in the trips that we've taken, um, and that we still keep in contact. And so when I travel now, I can call someone up like, "Hey, I'm coming your way. Do you want to meet up? Or can I stay at your house?" And usually, I don't have to stay in a hotel. I do keep up with a lot of people, and then a few of my closest friends live far away, so that also gives us opportunities to travel more. But it all came from doing a lot of traveling, and then everywhere I go, people always ask me how I know these people, and I'm like, I met them when we took a trip somewhere, and we
Right.
just kind of keep in contact. Growing up, because I didn't have a cell phone or anything, I've had about 15 pen pals at all times, and so
Mhm.
I was getting at least 5 to 10 letters a week in the mail from friends that I met at different places.
Right. And again, that is because you're a 2015 homeschool graduate, because
I know how to address an envelope. Let me stop.
yes, yes. But if you look at over, like when you nowadays more homeschoolers have, the technology,
Yeah.
but it didn't necessarily exist. I just speaking to my kids, and because I have a big gap, my younger kids say to me about my older kids, "Oh, well, they had phones," and I was like, "Yeah, they didn't have smartphones because they didn't
Yeah.
exist, so they had no app. All you could do is basically call. You couldn't even
Yeah.
texting was so much money back then. It was crazy
Yeah,
that you didn't want to do that."
when I graduated, 2015, the most popular phone was like the second or third iPhone, I think. But it still wasn't like a lot of people still had like razors and Blackberries and stuff like that. And that
Flip phones.
texting was like 123A, one, stuff like that. Um, so most of the times when people had it, it was because they were public school and they were gone from their parents and stuff a lot. We didn't need it. Like, and
Right.
then if we did go somewhere where our parents weren't there, one of us would have a phone that we would use if we needed to call them. But it
Right.
wasn't because we needed to contact other people. So,
Right. Okay. Well, do you remember what curriculum you used? I mean, just over the years, just whatever you can remember.
so the one I remember the most is probably a Becca, with the videos. We did that, on and off through the years. When I was anything before like high school, I don't really remember much of. I know we did like Matthew C when we were younger, for math, and then when we got older, we did Saxon math. Um, and I think one time we did Paces. But my mom, she definitely was one who, if we told her that we didn't like it or this wasn't, I just like for me, like my sister and I, she's very like she can get stuff very fast, and I'm like I can't get this, and so my mom would find things that were more geared to what I could get, and so that's one of the things about homeschooling you can do is you can kind of customize it to what you need, and then if we need something else, there was a co-op class, so we can go out to a co-op, where there were multiple different parents who may have had degrees and things, or even not parents. There were some people who didn't have kids there, but they liked working with the kids, and we would take specific classes. We took a lot of English and writing classes and things like that. Um, and my brother even got published in a few things, and me and my
Nice.
sister got runner up for a couple things, like doing stuff like that. We had opportunities to do things. So it was. I liked it because it's very customizable. You can kind of do what you need, and if one person doesn't need it, they could do something else. And since we're all different grades, it was easier to do it that way.
Right. Okay. Cool. Oh, I was gonna ask, and this you spoke to it a little bit. What classes or opportunities did you utilize to enhance your home education? And you touched on it about the co-ops and whatever you need. Your mother customized it, and you had outside classes like sewing and crocheting. Was it crocheting?
So
Is it
we did sewing for at first we did it in a co-op, but me and my sister surpassed some of the kids because we did it every that was one that we always did, but the
recycle?
teacher did the same stuff. And so it got to a point where we were like, well, we did this. And then when we tried to do more advanced stuff, she wasn't um able to teach us that stuff. So my mom hired a private sewing teacher that came to our house. I think she was coming to us for 4 or 5 years, I think.
Right.
Um,
I met her. I
at
met
least
her.
once a week. Yeah.
Mhm.
And she made my sister's wedding dress, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, and the crocheting and the knitting weren't necessarily classes. So at the YMCA at that time, they used to have like community classes and stuff like that. And we would go to those because they would be during the day, so we could go to them. Or even at the library, I think one time they had them, and that's where we learned how to do that. And then if we needed help, we would go to like knitting stores or yarn stores, and they would have people who would help if you needed it. So when it came to that, that's kind of how it did it. But we did more sewing than knitting or crocheting, because we started our own business with the sewing, when we were in high school, and we would sew stuff and make our own clothes and things like that.
Right. And curtains. I know you've made curtains.
Yeah,
You
almost
made,
every room in our house has a touch of something we've made.
right. Yes, that is a skill to have. That's wonderful. Um, what do you think, and maybe this was what you just said about sewing was it, but what was the most unique experience you think in your homeschool?
I was thinking about that question. I think being homeschooled is unique in its own way, only because I don't think anyone's gonna have the same experience and everyone's gonna do their own thing. I think personally for me, the idea of not being stuck where you are, just being
Right.
able to I could get up and go by myself pretty much anywhere and adapt and be able to fit into a social group,
Mhm.
a group of people, meet new people, make friends with new people like that. I know a lot of people struggle with making friends and things like that. And that's the one thing I think a lot of people think that homeschoolers don't have any friends. But if anything, I think we have some of the most friends because we actually know how to make friends without because not because we're stuck in a like a classroom with them, but because we go out of our way to make friends. And I
Mhm.
think to me
Oh,
that's unique in its own way because a lot of people can't do that.
yes.
And just having friends all over the world.
Yes, that that is a great unique experience.